Well, good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a fun, tabulous show today, I think, Niall.
Of course, Robby. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Let's get right to it. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Philadelphia for a CNN town hall where she faced questions from undecided voters. The event was arranged after Trump declined to participate in the second debate with her. And while the whole thing sounded like it would be an easy layup for Harris, I think the campaign might be waking up with some regrets this morning. For example, let's take a look at this classic job interview question Harris was asked by one undecided voter. Watch.
What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect, so let's start there. And I think that perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you, I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it.
Or take a look at Anderson Cooper asking Harris if she's ever made a mistake.
I don't think I've ever heard the former president admit a mistake. A lot of politicians don't. Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one more where Cooper was asked about her flip-flop on the border.
Let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense, because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
In fact, the whole performance had CNN doubting her. Let's watch.
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I have been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. And, some people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe. But that's maybe the world that she's living in.
When she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers.
You think she'd be prepared to do this by now. What's a mistake you've made? Nothing. What's a weakness you have? Nothing. What's the first law you want to pass? Nothing. What's a policy difference between you and Joe Biden? Nothing. Over and over and over. Empty, empty, empty. If she were an animal, she'd be a duck-billed platitude.
To be fair, not everyone felt that Harris's answers had no substance. Here's one reaction from an undecided voter.
I believe it was you that asked the weakness question. What is your biggest weakness? And she brought up that she has people around her that she can trust, that she can get the answer from. In my line of work in IT, I don't expect everybody to know the answer. I expect them to know how to get the answer. And her specifically, that resonated with me.
What did you think of Kamala Harris's performance?
I thought that it reminded me of the old Kamala Harris, who I had found underwhelming back in the 2020 primary. Like most people who cover national politics, that was my first time really watching her up close. I had thought when she first launched that campaign back then, okay, this is kind of interesting. It's a woman, a black woman from the biggest state in the nation. She seems perhaps quite charismatic. And then that campaign just sort of petered out in unimpressive fashion. Now, this year, there was a brief phase in this campaign around the time of her wrapping up the nomination, the convention, the first debate, which I do think she won pretty clearly. And I was like, oh, has Kamala Harris, improved when no one was watching while she was vice president? And I watched that last night and was like, no, she hasn't really. It's the same person.
Yeah, when she's asked, what are your mistakes or what are your regrets? I mean, she could say that the campaign I ran in 2019 and 2020 was to the left of where the country is, and I realize that now, and so we've revised some of our policies. I think that would be an honest answer. No politician wants to ever admit that they've changed the issues they're running on, but she clearly has, including when she was called out about supporting money for border funding and all of that. You know, I think what she's saying on that issue now sounds pretty moderate, pretty not divisive, and is reflective of the fact that Republicans are winning on the immigration issue, and that the mood of the country on immigration has shifted substantially to the right, or a rightward direction in public opinion on this is finally being noticed by people. And she has a fine answer now, but it is in contrast with the position she took on this several years ago. So I don't know if she reassured people that those are not. That's the danger with her. If
Right.
if you're a moderate, between moderate and conservative, but you don't like Trump and you are willing to vote for Kamala Harris, but do you trust that this version of her is the real version?
Right, exactly. And you said about the mood of the nation on immigration. Now, whether that has changed, whether it has moved right, or a more conservative sentiment has been noted, the fact is that there is the suspicion with Harris that she is trying to comport herself or shape herself to fit the mood of the time, as she tried, having not been, frankly, a particularly progressive prosecutor back in 2020, around the time that there was I don't think the George Floyd thing had happened, but there was certainly a lot of energy behind Black Lives Matter and all of that. She sought to present herself in a more progressive light. And so it does get to this question of authenticity, and I keep coming back to that with her. I think one of the reasons sometimes she seems to lack passion and spontaneity is because she's a bit too focus group oriented. Yeah. And David Axelrod, who I think is, to be fair to him, one of the best commentators and not a particularly, so to speak, tribal Democrat, was kind of getting at that in that clip that we showed, that it can be this sort of platitudinous word salad thing to try to avoid taking really any definitive position and to try to preserve for herself kind of wiggle room on almost everything.
Yeah, we've all heard her now so many times say things that, word salad is a good way to describe it, or going to the... I don't mind that she laughs. There's nothing wrong with her laugh, but she does do a kind of nervous laughter when she's filibustering for time and trying to think of what she's going to say. Look, undecided voters are going to matter in the swing states. They're an idiosyncratic bunch because there are very strong feelings across the nation about Donald Trump. If you're truly undecided, you could be undecided for a bunch of reasons. Right. You could be undecided because you're the most conservative person ever, and you don't trust that Donald Trump is gonna. You didn't think he, took out the deep state. In fact, he fell to the deep state. So you're not. But Kamala Harris isn't speaking to you, or you could be someone the other way, who's an actual progressive, right, who's really upset about Israel-Palestine, who thinks Medicare for all is a great idea and thinks that anti-immigration policies are xenophobic, and probably Kamala Harris is in danger of losing your support. Maybe you're a Jill Stein voter then. Yeah,
just two things briefly, Robby. When the whole Biden crisis went on, I think a lot of Democrats, including people that I spoke to, were like, we're definitely going to lose with Biden, but Harris isn't all that great, and I think that fear has been kind of borne out. And then just the other thing is that, having said all of this, and having said the traits in her political persona that I find kind of unimpressive, she's not out of this race by any means. Of course, the abortion question and the anti-Trump vote could be significant enough to get her over the line.
She is in most ways, and has demonstrated to have been an improvement over Joe Biden, given where Biden was. The only complicating factor of that is specifically the labor vote, I think, which is going to matter in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, where Joe Biden was better liked by this group of people, and that could end up hurting her. Yeah. That's my only concern for her candidacy. Otherwise, yes, she's reassured people because Biden was the situation with.
And I think she's going to do a bit better with younger voters than Biden would have done.
True. Right, we've got lots more to get to on the show today. In fact, we're going to continue talking about this town hall and the moment where Kamala Harris was asked if Donald Trump is a fascist. We'll talk about her response right after this.